Ah, there we go. Now you should be able to hear me. So that should be coming through. Rick or anybody else who's in the chat right now, if you could just give me a heads up and let me know that you can hear my voice and see my face. Yep. Okay, cool. Just give me a heads up when the microphone comes on. We get the sound yet? Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks so much for coming to the stream tonight. I see we got five people watching. I think one of them is me though. So, but appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Uh, and here we go. That'll help me look at the camera a little bit better. So, welcome to the Northern Virginia Motion Picture Co-op's first streaming seminar. So, audio and video looks good. Okay. Well, tonight, um, hopefully a few more people will drop into the chat, but tonight we're going to talk a little bit about an old film called Subtle Poisons, which I directed back in 1994, and this was back in the days when I was working in Hollywood. So we're gonna chat a little bit about that, and I'm gonna show you some artifacts from that production. And in the course of talking about this production, we're going to be going over basically some pre-production uh, strategies and things that you can do when you're planning and making a short film of your own, so that you can basically make the most out of your on-set time and your production time. Um, Nope. All right. Nope. People are telling me that nope, the audio is still good. Okay, cool. Then we shall proceed. And I apologize for the light reflecting in my glasses here. I'll try to keep that to a minimum as well. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Rob Kenzie. I'm the director of the Northern Virginia Motion Picture Co-op, and we are an organization based out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, and we're active in the greater Fredericksburg area, Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, up into Manassas and Northern Virginia, and all the way up into DC. We have people who are up in DC watching. Hey, Nick. Nick's on. All right, awesome. Um, Good to see you. And we obviously you are watching this on our official YouTube channel where you can see the films that we have already made in the last couple of years and some other projects that we've done. Before we sort of like get into the meat of the seminar, I want to talk just a little bit about stuff that's coming up. Obviously, with the coronavirus pandemic, everybody's kind of stuck in place at the moment, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this seminar. And the reason why we're doing this as a stream instead of me doing it at our usual place in Stafford, where we usually have a bunch of people come in and show bits of films, and we talk about filmmaking, and we talk about how to write a screenplay, or we talk about how to do casting, or how to talk to your actors. Lots of different things, lots of different topics that we cover. Hey, Josh Lieberman is in the house. Josh is my good friend from California who was the cinematographer on Subtle Poisons. And I have not seen him in a long time. Wow. Um, so it's good to have you on the stream, Josh. Thanks so much for tuning in. And so it's going to be there's a little bit of a delay between me and the chat. Obviously, there's like a 20-second delay between the time that I say something and the time that it gets to you guys. So I'm going to try and keep half an eye on the chat while we're talking here. Um, so for everybody who's watching right now, who is one of the local members, so the question has come up on how we're going to sort of move forward after, knock wood. Hopefully, we get past this. It's not really a lockdown in Virginia, but the this moment where we're all sort of social distancing and staying at home. We do still have a green light on In Between, which is the short that is currently on on the production slate that we're supposed to be starting that at the end of May. I don't think we're going to make that deadline, so we're going to have to find some new shooting dates. Haven't been able to get the casting done, haven't been able to do the proper location scouting. Um, by the way, this mic is really sensitive. There's a motorcycle going by up. You're probably going to occasionally hear something happening somewhere in the house or around it. Um, I have a bunch of teenagers in the house with me, so you may hear one of them do or say something. Um, anyway, yes, we still want to move forward with In Between. We still have plans to tackle Empress of Earth later on in the summer. A lot is going to depend on what happens in the next couple of months. Obviously, I'm going to keep watching the news, and I'm going to see what I can do. I don't know if Joey Santiago is watching right now, but Joey, if you're out there, um, I want to talk to you about maybe finding some way we can start the casting process for In Between. At least see if we can lock down the two leads. Um, so there's that. Again, basically just watch the Facebook group, and I will continue to send out email announcements. And if anybody is interested in helping out on either In Between or Empress of Earth later on in the summer, also Rick Miranda is writing the script for The Nexus, which is the other film that's sort of like fast tracking through the development slate right now. And I got the most recent version of that script from Rick just a couple of days ago. Rick, I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to go over it with a fine tooth comb yet, but we're really, really close to having a finalized script on that as well. And I'm looking forward to getting that. That's probably, it's probably not going to be until the fall at the earliest at the moment, just because of the current crisis is backing everything up. But we do hope to move forward and produce more films this year. Definitely want to get at least one or two done before the end of the year. Again, knock wood. Oh, I'm going to post something to the Facebook group a little bit later on as well. Roger Corman just gave a sort of like stay-at-home film challenge, which I think would be a lot of fun for some folks to get involved in. So I'll post a link to that later on. But let's not dawdle anymore. We've been live for a little while now, so let's go ahead and I don't know how many other people are going to drop in on this, but let's go ahead and start talking about subtle poisons. And so this story begins at Paramount Pictures in Los Angeles. I worked there for a couple of years in the early 90s. I worked for a company called Neufeld Ramey Productions that were on the lot there. They produced Clear and Present Danger and Beverly Hills Cop 2 and a couple of other things while I was there. And there were a lot of us sort of like young Turk filmmakers who were working around Paramount Studios at the time. And I had a couple of friends who had done short films, and I was interested in doing a short film and getting some folks together who were of like mind and who just wanted to get our hands into production. I had a friend named Christina Lee, and she hooked me up with a woman named Kelly Kane, and Kelly brought in a whole bunch of other people, and we wound up hanging out and meeting in the conference room in the marketing department. We had a couple of meetings there where we talked about potential projects. And so we definitely, everybody was hot to make a movie and to get something done. I sort of took the lead on the project because I had access to some funding that I could use to help it happen. And so we got together and we decided we were going to make a short film. And so that film was going to be, hang on there. Let's see. It's called Sun Chaser. And I know what you're saying now. Wait, what? Hang on. What's Sun Chaser? Because I thought we were here to talk about subtle poisons. Well, originally the film was supposed to be called Sun Chaser. It was supposed to be a completely different film. Sun Chaser was a sci-fi sort of like adventure story in the vein of Star Wars. Is the first page of the script. I wrote it in conjunction with a friend of mine named Eric Alba. Eric did a lot of video post-production, and we even got some We got some concept art done. There was a guy named Jim, and I don't remember Jim's last name. I tried reading it on the artwork, but I wasn't able to read his last name. Sorry, Jim, wherever you are. But he did some excellent concept art for the film. There's a cockpit of a spaceship here, and this was sort of like a concept for a gun turret for that for the ship for that thing. And Eric had done a lot of video effects and a lot of post production effects, and so Eric was basically the idea was Eric would do the special effects. I would take care of the live action stuff, and we'd have the production team working mostly on the live action stuff, and then helping out Eric wherever he needed with the special effects. We even got to the point of doing storyboards for it. But unfortunately, Sun Chaser was not to be because after we had had like 2 or 3 production meetings, Eric got a job on doing special effects for Star Trek: The Next Generation, and so he got really, really busy suddenly, and we were like, oh, I guess he had to drop out of the project. So, and he did that like the day after we'd had our second production meeting, and we had another one scheduled for the following week, and so I was sort of like racking my brain because I knew I had a bunch of people here who wanted to make a movie, and I really wanted to go forward. So I was like, what am I going to do? I went back to my apartment and I spent the next few days banging out a script for Subtle Poisons. Subtle Poisons was based on a short story that I had written a couple of years before called The Big Vacation. I'm going to say up front, I'm not hugely proud of this script. It is in some ways in some ways it's like the most overwrought anti-drug PSA short film in the world. I'm not terribly proud of the writing, but it works. The story is about a sort of a corrupt cop who's taking drugs, and he gets involved in a murder involving some weird drugs, hallucinogens being used as a murder weapon. The woman that who's a dealer who he is sleeping with, is involved with somebody who's dealing drugs. It turns out he's actually using hallucinogenic coffee to take down drug dealers, basically. And if you read the script and if we watch the film later on, this obviously was a script that was written by somebody who knew nothing about police or drugs. It's very melodramatic and kind of overwrought, and some of the dialogue is a little bit cringeworthy. But it was very ambitious. It had a relatively large cast and a good number of locations. So we were, I was basically, I thought that this would work. So I went back to the production team for the next meeting, and I basically broke the news to everyone that Eric had left the project, so we weren't going to be able to go forward with. We weren't going to be able to go forward with Sun Chaser, but I handed out copies of the script for Subtle Poisons. I sort of gave everybody the rundown on it, and I talked to them a little bit about what the concept was and how I thought we could shoot it, and what resources we were able to sort of bring together to make it happen. And so everybody was still on board. Everybody still wanted to make a movie. So then we needed to dive into pre-production. So once you've got sort of the beginnings of a production team in place, and once you've got a script that you've settled on, then you move into the phase of pre-production, where you have to start translating the script into something that is shootable. So the first thing you do is break down the script. And when I say break down the script, is you basically go through the script with a couple of highlighters, and you are going to use different colored highlighters to call out various things in the script. So you've got one color for like all of the character parts, all the speaking parts. You've got one for all the props you're going to need, one for locations. And it's a process of making lists, basically, so that you have a series of comprehensive lists of everything you're going to need to put on the screen in terms of characters, in terms of locations, in terms of props, in terms of special effects. If there's any particular audio cues that are called out, those need to be called out in the breakdown as well. And so today you would use project management software for this. There's all kinds of software that's available to help you plan to break down a script and plan it back in the day. This is the early 1990s, so people are just barely beginning to use computers for this kind of thing. So of course we didn't have access to the new software that was for that. So we had to make use of strip boards. This is so a good portion of this stream is going to be me talking about obsolete technology and having far, far, far too much nostalgia for it. These are really, I mean, let's be honest, these were the bad old days compared to what is available today for people to use, and things are just so much easier and so much more convenient today for filmmaking. You're looking at this picture and you're asking, so what's a strip board? Basically, what you do is you take your breakdown, and you literally make all these cardboard strips, and they're color coded. I believe it's been a long time. I think if I remember correctly, yellow was for interior day, and blue was for interior night, and green was for exterior day, and pink was for exterior night. And the strip board basically is each strip represents a scene, and then all those little check boxes there would be lined up on the other end of the strip board, where if you see at the far left in that picture, there's would be the lists of the actors, of the props, of the locations, of the special effects, whatever you needed for that particular scene would be sort of like check marked on the strip. And then you would use the strip board to schedule your days, basically. So you could shuffle the scenes around in and find what would be the best, most convenient way to shoot, get through a particular shooting day. So today you would, again, use Excel for this today, and there's a million pieces of software out there that are all designed to help you do this so much more efficiently. Of course, the other thing that I got started on immediately in terms of pre-production was working on storyboards. Not every film needs storyboards, and you can see also looking at this, the aspect ratio. This is old TV aspect ratio. We didn't do a widescreen film aspect ratio because we were going to be shooting on 16 millimeter film, and we were going to be doing it in a like a an old SD television format. So it was not we weren't doing the widescreen. But not every film needs extensive storyboards. Generally, what you need storyboards for are action and for any sort of complex visual narrative that you're going to lay out. So we worked on the storyboards, and got a few more. Let's see, what am I looking at here? Get through the slides. See my sort of like very, very crude drawings. I'm not a particularly good artist, but it was just enough to sort of like give me an idea of exactly what I was going to try and put on the screen. So there were two other things that needed to happen while we were doing the pre-production, and one was the casting, and the other one was getting the crew together. We'll talk about the casting first. Here we go. I'll go for boom. So here's our lead actor, Eric Schwartz. So we had a couple of people working on casting, and I had a casting director. Who was the casting director? Hang on, I've got the crew list here. Our casting director, I believe, where is it? Was Brenda Harris. That's right. She was somebody I'd known in college, and she came on to help out with the casting. And also the production manager, Yin Yu, she helped out with the casting as well. So we had a number of guys come in to read for the lead role, the detective. Eric Schwartz as Stephen was our detective. Stephen Moon, really, really game actor, really willing to go out there and just sort of like go for it. And that's basically what I generally look for in a casting session. Is I talk to the actors, try to give them an idea of what the part is and what exactly is required of them, and do a little bit of back and forth, have them read, and then give them some direction based on their read and see what they do with that direction. That's the way that I run it anyway. And obviously, with any casting situation, you want to make sure the actors are as comfortable as possible. We had a lot of people come in to read. Not when I say a lot, I say we had a number of people to come in. Let me say that we didn't have a lot of people to come in. And the truth is that just about everybody who came in to read for a part wound up getting cast as something. It wasn't necessarily for the thing that they read for, but just about everybody got cast as something. And Eric, again, really, really game actor. He had a real intensity, and he was really willing to sort of go the distance and get out there and go the extra mile. Jerica Jones as our female lead, Felicia. She's the sort of a temptress figure. Felicia is this sort of like glamorous drug dealer who's giving drugs to Detective Stephen Moon. Jerica was she came to the casting sessions actually not to read, but accompanying somebody who was reading for the part of the detective. And just on a whim, she jumped in to read for the part. And honestly, she was pretty much perfect for the role. Cast her on the spot, actually. So she was had a very glamorous look to her. She was a dancer. And again, also sort of like very game, very up for sort of like getting into the role and doing whatever was necessary. Our heavy Howard Patterson playing a guy named Navarre, really pretentious role, pretentious name, pretentiously written, but Howard did he did a good job with it. Um, he was a very serious guy, very professional guy. He was tall, blonde. He had kind of a severe look to him, and he was able to sort of like affect this smooth attitude that we liked. And I feel bad because like it took me forever to get Howard a copy of the film after it was done, because I was having trouble getting copies of it made and running into budget problems and whatnot. And Howard kept bugging me about that. Sorry about that, Howard. But he was very, very professional. It's an interesting thing about Howard. He was this is the first time I ever personally ran into somebody who had a stutter that went away while they were performing. So that was kind of interesting to watch him work that way. One of our supporting actors, we're in our supporting actors now, David Bader as Danny. David, he was like this fresh-faced young guy. He looked a little bit too young to be the detective. You put him in a police uniform with those glasses on him, and he just, he looked really sweet. He was, again, really good actor. Everybody who worked on this really gave their all and really did a great job. Really appreciate everybody who was involved in this. Um, let's see, David after David. This was Kelly Kane. She had a big role in the production in terms of like bringing people into it. She was one of the people originally. She worked in the marketing department over at Paramount. She wanted to be in filmmaking. She wasn't sure she wanted to be an actress or she wanted to be in production. On Subtle Poison, she did both. She was primarily acting, but especially at the beginning, she helped bring a lot of people into the production, and she had connections with a lot of people who were interested in doing a film, any film, and so she brought them into the production. Really, this wouldn't have happened without Kelly. And then we have Belinda Long as she plays just a minor character who's sort of like an informant character. Um, she just had a very sweet face, and she and again, really game actress, willing to get out there, and put on this trashy costume to do a scene at a nightclub. She was really sweet. And another bit player, Gary K. Thomas, as it says, as himself. Gary, he was a character in real life. This was the character he was playing was basically a guy running the bar at a coffee shop, and the character was supposed to be a little bit offbeat and have just a kind of a touch of weirdness about him, or at least a touch of. I think he was written like he was supposed to have an accent of some kind. And Gary was British, so he didn't really do accents other than his own. But his own accent was kind of ridiculous as it was. He was very hard to edit. He was a really funny guy on set. He kept cracking everybody up. He was very hard to edit because he never did his performance the same way twice. So that was a little bit difficult in the editing bay. But other than that, he was a really cool, funny guy. And then Mark Friedman as Arnie, the medical examiner. This was a scene that got added at the last minute. It wasn't originally it wasn't in the original script, but we felt that there needed to be a scene to sort of explicate a few things about the murders. And Mark was Josh Lieberman's uncle, so the cinematographer's uncle. And I believe I had met Mark at a party, and he was kind of a wacky guy. Josh said that he'd be perfect for the role, and I basically cast him on Josh's recommendation and did not disappoint. He had a really kind of like funky offbeat delivery that just worked perfectly for the character. And he was a very helpful guy in terms of making the scene work. And I think that covers. Oh no, we got one more. Yeah, that's right. Oh, this guy, Scott Dance. Yes, Scott Dance as Agent Gray, FBI. Um, Again, I was looking for somebody to give kind of a weird offbeat performance in this role, kind of like almost a David Lynchian kind of performance. And Scott delivered on that for sure. He gave this sort of like weird, exaggerated performance. I was a little nervous when he came on set because he came on set with a six pack of beer, and I think he drank three of them before he had to go on. Yeah, but he gave the performance, so I was a little off put by that, but it worked at the time. I was an untried director, so I wasn't exactly sure how to talk to him about that, but it was part of his process, I guess, that he needed to be well relaxed before he started giving his lines. But he did well. He did well. Um, in doing the casting process, just again, this is just to sort of like give you an idea of the kind of documentation that went through the casting process. We had a performance waiver for all of the actors. If you are planning on, making a film where you're going around to festivals and you're submitting things already, basically you want to have performance waivers from your actors if at all possible. I know on like some small films, nobody occasionally people don't bother with it. And if you're doing small films, they're just going to be on YouTube or whatnot. It's not necessarily something you need to bother with. But if it's something that you think where this film might go to festivals or might be shown elsewhere, you're probably going to want to just have performance waivers, just so you know that you've got the full and unadulterated right to use the performance in a production. Um, Another thing here, this is just a copy of one of the actors' letters. You notice the letterhead there, Visionary Productions, was the name of the production company that I was using at the time. Again, really super pretentious name, but that's it's me. What do you want? And this is just this is the letter with Eric talking about. It wasn't really a contract. Um, the performance waiver for the purposes of this film basically was the contract. But this just was a very rough agreement letter between me and Eric, and I had one of these for all of the cast members, outlining how many days he'd be shooting. Eric was because he's in every single scene in the film, so he had the heaviest shooting schedule, and as you can see there, I think he had about 8 days of shooting over the course of 4 weekends, and we paid him I think it was $175. It says there, and that's in even in 1994 dollars. That's not a lot. But it was important to me to make sure that if you can pay, you get what you pay for in terms of acting most of the time. So it's always good to try and have a budget to pay for your actors. It's important. And then here, just to give you an idea, this is an old call sheet. I just pulled this up because this is something that again, when you're doing your own films out there, you're going to need to put these together. Back in the day, this was before email. Obviously, I think I may have had an email address at the time, but not everybody did. And certainly, most of the actors didn't have email addresses. The production assistants back in the day in Hollywood, spent a lot of their time running around delivering call sheets to people. Either like going to actors' houses and dropping off call sheets, making sure that everybody had the call sheet, so when they had to be on set, where the set was, what they were going to do. This is just a sort of an example. There's lots of different ways to format a call sheet, but this you can see on there. It talks about where to park, how to where the location is, where the parking is, what time to be there, other concerns, what time lunch is. There's when the caterer has to be there with the food and whatnot. We had an interesting caterer for this film because it's important. I've said this many times, that on any short film, like any film under whose budget is like under 8 or 10 grand, the largest line item in your budget should probably be catering, because you gotta feed your crew, you gotta feed your actors, you want to keep everybody hydrated and fed on set so that they don't have to go running off to get food or water or something like that. And they're not miserable hanging around the set all day with nothing to eat or drink. Anyway, that's just a little something. So while we were taking care of the casting, then the next thing we need to take care of was getting the crew together. Now, I had a couple of ideas, and originally I approached a guy who I had gone to college with about being the cinematographer for this, and I don't think Josh will be too put out when I say that my first choice for cinematographer was a guy that we both knew named Matt Libatique, who had done the cinematography for a couple of short films for friends of mine because we had all gone to college together at Cal State University Fullerton. I don't know if any of you know Matt Libatique. He later became a very, very well-known cinematographer. I think he's got at least one Oscar right now. He was on Marvel's Iron Man. He did a lot of work with Darren Aronofsky. He shot a lot of music videos for Death Row Records. He's got a hell of a career, and it would have been great. But I think this was right after he got hired by, right around the time he got hired by Death Row Records to doing music videos for them. But my friend Josh Lieberman, who again also was a fellow from Cal State Fullerton. We had done a lot of writing together and been hanging out together a lot. And Josh was definitely going to work on the film. I think originally he was going to be a gaffer on the film, but and like take care of the lighting. But when Matt wasn't available for the film, Josh stepped up and he said, "Hey, I'll shoot it." And yeah, exactly, Josh. What if I had directed the DP from Iron Man? I know exactly. Well, you never know. But Josh did a great job too, and it was a learning experience for all of us. And but Josh was really instrumental in helping to sort of put the crew together and in helping figure out what gear we needed. And now this is the portion of the stream where again we wax nostalgic for bad old technology. So let's talk about gear. This is I tried to remember exactly what cameras we used on this film, and I'm pretty sure we used one of these. This is an Arriflex 16 SR2. Um, Oh yeah, he did Birds of Prey as well. Yeah, no, Matt's been all over the place. Yeah, so this is an Arriflex 16 SR. I think we had one of these for part of the shoot. We used several different cameras over the course of the shoot because they were all rentals. We used a rental company in LA called Burns and Sawyer. I believe they were the ones who supplied most of our gear, at least in terms of the camera department. Um, and we used this one. I think we may have had one of these. This is just a standard Airflex 16. This is one even older. Yeah, and so I think we had both of these at various times on the set. Various lenses and whatnot. And again, we're working with film here, and so I don't know. I'm not sure how many of you who are watching right now know how much you know about how film works, but man, it's so much easier today. The cameras are so much easier. Uh, just to give you just an idea, like for film loading was such a pain in the ass, just getting the film into and out of the camera, because the film, you have to preserve the exposure, so you can't let light hit it. That's why these reels here you see in this camera are made of solid black metal. The idea is that when the film is wound up inside the reel, the light can't get at it to spoil the exposure. But for most of the time when you're changing film reels in and out of a camera, you got to do it inside of a black bag. So basically, you stick the camera inside of a black sack, and then by feel, without looking at it, you have to get the body of the camera open, get the reel of film out that you have already exposed, put it into a can, and seal it all inside the bag without looking at it. Then bring in a new canister of film, get that one open, get it in, and get it put into the camera. in such a way that you can get it threaded through the exposure gate, and again do all that without looking. And Josh, I was never able to do that. Josh could do it. He had a couple of other guys with him who were really good and quick at the film loading. And of course, because it's film, we couldn't see what we were shooting. I didn't see one frame of this film until after it was all shot, and the film had actually been developed. So, yeah, so much better these days. This, I don't think we had exactly this Nagra. This is a Nagra recorder, reel to reel tape recorder, and this is the kind of thing that we use to record the sound. Sound's got to be recorded separately from the film because there's no way to marry the two in the camera. And again, the thing that is so much easier now than then is like all of the paperwork and note taking that had to be done with the camera and the audio recorder, because every time there was any take, you had to note the exposure and the aperture. You had to make sure that you had every scene, every take notated, what the time was on the film. And yes, Josh, we are very old. The what the time was on the film, what the time was on the tape. Again, it was. I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed that we even that the film looks as good as it did and got finished on time. The gear today is so much more easier. I look, you go on YouTube and you see just about any DSLR is probably a better camera than anything we used on this film. And the audio is built into it, and you don't need to worry about developing it at a lab. Really so much easier today, and that's one of the reasons why we at the co-op are able to do the films that we can today. With given the fact that we have very little money to work with, but we have access to some cool gear, and that has made all the difference. What else do we have? Studio lights are studio lights. They are, back then we didn't have LED lights like we have today. But there's people still use these incandescent cans today. I think Nick Zamal, I think he has some of these that he uses still. And but the lights are pretty much the same. We had a wide variety. Some were newer, some were older. I think we had like at least one incidence of a light bulb exploding because it had been handled slightly improperly. Hey Ann, how are you? Yeah, exactly. All the old stuff. We got a lot of old people in the stream right now, I think. So yeah, Josh actually found for one of our later shooting days these things called dado lights, which were new at the time. Dado, they're still making lights. They're still making really cool gear. At the time, they were like the smallest production lights that still had some brightness to it that we'd ever seen. They were really cool, and they didn't. And here's the thing: that they didn't draw a lot of power. We had to do some shooting outside in the woods, and we had a generator to provide power, but it only provided so many watts, right? And those dado lights that Josh found actually really saved our ass because they didn't draw a lot of power, so we were able to use several lights instead of just having like one running off the generator. And people are still using the same kind of gear today. This is a doorway dolly. We had one that was similar back then. People still use this. They call it a doorway dolly because it fits through a doorway. It's just a dolly on wheels, and yes, and I am old. You use it with floor wheels. You use it with tracks. We had tracks that we used with ours. Whenever we could because the tracks were just smoother. We had a porta jib. People still use porta jibs today. It's basically the technology for this kind of stuff has not changed at all. They're making newer versions of these things that are cheaper and better than what we had back in the day. But the basics of it is the same. It's just, a weighted jib arm. You stick the camera on the end of it. And as I said, I'll take a little bit of a drink here. As I said, we shot on film, so I didn't see a frame of it until it got developed. So that means that we had to have a film lab. And for the film lab, we worked with a company called Photochem out in Burbank. They were in a funky old building out in Burbank at the time. They're in a really beautiful new facility today. But our production manager, Yin Yu, she I think had a student account at Photochem because I think she had been at USC, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the details, but I know that Yin set up. Did I ever work with Charlie Chaplin? I don't know, but for one of the shoot days, I know we had a camera that was probably as old as Charlie Chaplin. That was the first shoot day. I don't know how we wound up with that camera, but so Yin had, I believe Yin had a student account with Photochem, and I believe because she had been at USC, and there was some kind of like a deal between Photochem and the university, and because of that, she set up an account for the film where we got really super cheap processing and developing, and honestly, I don't know if we there's some services they provide. I don't know that we ever actually paid for because I know that I remember Josh. You may remember this. You remember this, Josh, but I know we went at least 2 or 3 times to do color timing there. Because after the negative was cut and we had our first work print, well, there wasn't really a work print, but we had our first print that was done. We went to review with a color timer, and we asked for a bunch of changes, and they made the changes, and then we went back and did it again, and I think we asked for more changes, and they did more changes to it. Hey there, is that Grant? Cool. Anyway, we had like I said, they did a lot for us, and I'm not sure that they charged us for all of it. And it may be that USC wound up paying for some of this film. I never knew the details because again, it was it was her account at Photochem that we were using. And that led to an interesting situation later on where the negative wound up going into Photochem's vault and staying there for 25 years. and just got it out recently. But anyway, that's another story. So yeah. But we and speaking of Yin, who was our production manager, there she is. And you're asking, hey, why is Yin wearing a lab coat on a set? And that's because we had a chronic problem getting extras for the production. Just like we would have people who say they'd be extras and they just wouldn't show up. And so as a result, there's a lot of crew members who wound up in front of the camera. I think Josh is one of the few people who did not wind up in front of the camera, but there's Yin, our unit production manager, and this woman with the fabulous opera gloves with her back to us on the right hand side. That's Andy Robbins, our prop master. Yes, deep from the bowels of Photochem where this thing was held up. And who else we have? That's I believe this is Scott Kuiper, the back of Scott Kuiper's head. He was our first assistant camera. And there's Tim Doan, who did our location sound. He was the guy who ran the Nagra. And here he is being the counter guy at a coffee shop. And there's my first AD, Thomas Meyer, playing 90s Kid. He was basically supposed to be some street guy that the Detective Moon is talking to. And, it wasn't just our crew who were standing in front of the camera. Relatives got in on the act. That's my brother, Tom. Tom is there. I don't know what this outfit is supposed to be. I think that's one of my old jackets. And I don't know. They were supposed to look like sketchy guys hanging out in a corner. They didn't have any lines or anything like that. But they were just there to sort of like provide some color in a montage scene. And of course, everybody else got in front of the camera. I needed to get in front of the camera too. I'm obligatory director's cameo. I'm a fan of Hitchcock, sure, but honestly, it was more about the fact that we didn't have any extras to round out some of the scenes. So there I am as a guy who's walking around in the background, and just then I walk from there right behind the camera so I can finish directing the scene. And then of course there's me as a patron in a coffee shop because we needed somebody in the background there. And then those are my feet with the toe tag on them in the morgue. I'm playing the corpse and I'm directing the scene from the hospital gurney there. So yeah, I didn't want to be on screen that much, but I did wind up on screen. Josh was asking, did I end up with the negative? Yes, I did eventually get the negative back, and there's a story there as well. Yeah, the, the long and short of it was that Yin, because it was Yin's student account that we were using, her name was on all of the docs, was on all of the documentation, was on all the invoices, was on all the purchase orders and everything like that. After the film was made, Yin and I fell out of touch because I'm terrible. At least I was terrible that way. This is the days before social media. It was hard for me to keep up with people. We got together occasionally a couple of times, but within a couple of years after the film was done, we'd fallen out of touch. And then when I basically I never missed the fact that I didn't have the negative. I had the prints, and I had all the work prints basically, and I had all of the I had the final print that we had done. I had what I thought was all of the elements. But then when I moved from Los Angeles to the East Coast, I realized that I was missing elements. I was missing the master, I was missing the negative basically, and I called Photochem at the time. I remember finding out that everything was in Yin's name at the time, and not being able to contact Yin and just saying to hell with it, and just left. And then it was a couple of years ago that I was going through like old, basically cleaning out the basement. I didn't throw away any of the subtle poison elements, but as I was going through them, I realized again that I didn't have the negative. Was wondering what happened to it. So on a whim, I called up Photochem. I called them or emailed them or something. I don't remember. I got in touch with somebody at Photochem, and basically told them about the project. I said, look, you guys aren't even in the same building anymore. I'm sure that whatever this was, it probably got thrown away or lost in a move. And he says, well, look for it. And sure enough, it was there in their vaults somewhere. They had put this away. They put away the negative, and they had the elements there. And I basically, kind of cajoled the guy, and it still had Yin's name all over it. And so I basically had to say, look, if you open it up, if you take a look at the negative and you just look at the credits, you'll see my name is all over the damn credits. Nobody else is going to come looking for this. And they were really, really sweet about it. He talked to his manager, or she talked to her manager. I don't remember now. And they agreed to. They said if somebody could come pick it up within 2 or 3 days, then they wouldn't charge me the storage for the 25 years that it was in their vaults. And my friend Grant, who's still in LA, he went out to Photochem for me, and he picked it up and shipped it back to me. So yeah, so now I have the negative again. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I've got it. So yeah. So anyway, let's see. Was there anything else on here? So again, there's Ian. So in addition to getting the crew together, and in addition to, let me go ahead and just call out some of the other members of the crew. I know that none of them are watching, but in case any of them ever see this when it's archived somewhere. But Yin was the production manager. Thomas Meyer, the first AD, Josh Lieberman, director of photography, Scott Kuiper was our first assistant camera, a guy named Dave Delacruz, our second assistant camera. Dave actually is also, his voice is in this film at the end. We needed somebody to rant on a tape in Spanish, and Dave was the only person I knew who spoke good enough Spanish to do that. Brenda Harris doing casting and costumes. Andy Robbins is our property master. Suzanne Burton was our script supervisor and our set dresser. Stephen Weller, who did the makeup and creature effects for this, and Steve, we did not deserve him. He did the best he could given the circumstances we put him in, and it was we put him through a lot. He had a lot of patience for us. Tim Doan doing location sound. John Bush was our boom operator. A guy named Haisak Paisan, he did some of the sound design with me and the mixing. And Christina Lee, somebody else I went to college with. She wasn't really part of the production per se. We gave her a production coordinator credit because she helped get a lot of us together. But I think she may have been on set once or twice, but I don't. Actually no. I have to. Big thanks to Christina Lee because she actually put everybody up in a cabin near the forest location. Yeah, no, big big thanks to Christina Lee for that. But speaking of locations, let's talk about locations and how we made them work. So obviously, we shot this in L.A., and this is a scene that we took from the roof of an apartment building. You'll see this in some of the opening shots of the film. We were trying to go for really show like the smog and the air pollution. I don't think we really had the right idea on how to shoot it, but you sort of get the idea. You get the haze in the air and whatnot. But so everything was sort of like in and around LA where we were doing this. So we had to do a police station. Josh and I went and did a location scout in an old hotel that had a lot of film shot there. We could not afford the location fees at all. It was no, and they weren't. They, even when we lied to them and said we were student production, they weren't going to accommodate us. So we wound up doing it in an apartment building that was managed by Eric, the lead actor. There was an empty apartment, and so we dressed it up, put a big map on the wall, we put a bunch of office furniture in there, some filing cabinets, had the right costumes, and used, we put the right sounds underneath the scene in post production. It says don't shoot the floor because it had this ugly carpet. We didn't, that would have given it right away. But it doesn't really look like a police station. It does look like like some kind of public service office. So it sort of does it. I was never happy with this set, but it was the best we could do with what we had for that particular scene. And again, Eric was really accommodating in helping us put all this together. We got a lot of props. There was a really cool prop warehouse on Melrose Boulevard that had just all kinds of furniture and set dressing and props and maps and all kinds of stuff. And we made a very good use of them. Their rates were pretty reasonable, so we could afford it. So we had a crime scene, which was shot in my apartment. I know it doesn't look it, but like that gore and awfulness that's all over the wall. I knew that we needed to have a torn up wall for this particular scene, and so I went out and I just got a piece of white drywall, and we just propped it up against the actual wall there. It's actually that's a little hallway there where that door is, and we propped the drywall right up against the edge of the doorway, and it blended right in because of the exposure we were shooting at. You can't really see the seam, and so we just messed up the drywall. I put down, I got a big piece of carpet leaving from a carpet store, and we put that down and splashed blood all over it. So my apartment, we pretty much destroyed it, or like half of it. Like we tossed the furniture. My apartment had this big picture window with these blinds across it, so we shot a light through the blinds to give it that sort of like that really kind of like film noir kind of pattern on the wall. Nice to break up the white wall that way. But my apartment, like, this was one of the earlier scenes we shot. And because of my work schedule and the shooting schedule, I never really had time to clean it up. So it stayed this way for like a month. I was basically living in this destroyed apartment set for a month while we were shooting this. I don't know. I don't think it did much for my mental health. We had a couple of scenes at a nightclub. And I think Yin was the one who arranged the nightclub for us. Yin, this was a place called Arbat Golden Palace. It was an Armenian review nightclub in Burbank, and the scene there were supposed to be two scenes that took place here. One of them is in a flashback, and this is part of the flashback scene, so that's why it's filled with smoke. The place was huge. It was a barn. It had a big stage and an enormous dance floor, and the bar was off to one side, up on a raised section. The scenes originally were supposed to be like party scenes, and like one of them was supposed to be basically set at a rave. And we made arrangements for about 25 or 30 extras to show up to shoot this rave scene, and not one of them showed up. Not one of the extras that we had arranged for actually showed up on the shooting day. So that's why the bartender in the back is Thomas Meyer, the first AD again, and I'm in the background, and Andy is in the background, and everybody, basically the whole crew is hanging around the side. I think there was one guy who worked there. who knew Yin, and he was also an extra. He's in there for like 2 seconds. So this is the nightclub in the flashback scene. This is the nightclub later on in the non-flashback scene. Pardon me. So yeah, it was a really cool place. It definitely looked like a bar. So it gave us what we needed, because we were originally supposed to shoot on the dance floor, but there was just no way that was going to happen. The place was too big. It would just it would have been absolutely empty. We pumped so much smoke behind that bar, that mineral oil smoke, that the floor got nice and slick back there. I think somebody may have accidentally fallen over at some point because the floor got so slick because of the smoke machine. This was a coffee house, a place called Habitat. We got this was a difficult location. We got this location because it was literally a block and a half up the street from where Josh lived. And Landon asked, how much did it cost to use some of these locations? Okay, that's a really good question. So the police station, that was in the building that Eric managed, and so we got that for free. The crime scene was at my apartment, so we got that for free. There's actually several scenes that are shot around my apartment. The nightclub we also got for free, which and I think it was just because Yin asked nicely, and they were, we basically said, you'll get a credit in the film, and I think they thought that it was a bigger film than it was when they said yes, but they were really sweet about the whole thing, and it was a nice. I'm pretty sure it was a family-owned business, and and I don't know who knew who that got us in there, but they didn't ask for anything. They were really cool about it at the nightclub. And that was opposed to this place, Habitat. Habitat, this was a difficult location. These guys, I needed a coffee house. These guys were just up the street from Josh's, the house where Josh was living at the time. They were not doing a ton of business, and Josh, they were often empty, and so Josh approached them, and the guy basically agreed. I don't remember I do not remember the number. I think it was $400 or $500 was the original number that we agreed on with him to shut him down for a whole day, because we shot all day and into the night on this set. I think there's just like one shot that takes place during the day. The rest of it is shot at night, but we blacked out all the windows and turned the camera away from the windows for the rest of the shoot. So I think we had agreed on something like $400 or $500 for this location, but then literally like 2 days before the shoot or something, Josh may remember this, the guy came back to Josh and said he wanted more money. And this was after we had done all of the scheduling, and after all the call sheets had gone out, and after everybody, he had us over a barrel basically, and he almost like doubled the price or something like that. I think I think it went up to like $700 or $800 or maybe more. I don't recall. This is in 1994 dollars. So yeah, it was he was kind of a dick about it. But this I reached into the pocket and said okay, because we really did not have a choice at that point. We never had a formal contract with him, which is why he was able to do that. It was just sort of like a handshake agreement, which goes to show that unless you're really confident in your handshake agreements, get it in writing, I guess, is all I can say. But this was a very difficult location. It was hard to light because it was very dark in there, and that was one of the things that I wanted a dark location, but we didn't quite have the right lighting package to pull it off in the way that we wanted. So this whole scene that we shot there, the nighttime scene, is kind of dim, and there's parts of it that are just kind of like difficult. There was not a lot of room for the camera and the crew in the front space where we needed to do the shooting. So anyway. We worked it out eventually. We got something on film, which is the important thing. Moving on from the coffee house, there was the forest. This is a stolen location. It's in a state park up on the way to Big Bear and Lake Arrowhead outside Los Angeles. There was no place in LA we could have shot the stuff that takes place in the forest. Yeah, Chris, always get it in writing, definitely. There was no place around LA we could have done. You can't like just go into Griffith Park with a camera and shoot because you got to have permits for that kind of stuff. So I spent a couple of weekends driving up to Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of LA, up in the mountains. You go through the Los Angeles National Forest to get there. And I found a couple of locations for us to shoot in. One of them was this area, and this was literally, there was just like a turnout on the side of the road. There was no rest area. There was no nothing there. It was just a little turnout on the side of the road, to pull your car off in case somebody was coming up behind you and wanted to pass you on this 2-lane road. But there was this interesting rock formation there, so I just pulled over the side of the road and scouted around, and like it seemed like a really good place to do it, and there was nobody around. This is nowhere near anything, and it was on the main road going back and forth from Lake Arrowhead. So I was like, okay, let's just try and do it here. And so we did. We actually shot the scene on the way back from spending the weekend at Lake Arrowhead to shoot some other scenes up there. And this little area just had really good light. It was I think it was relatively early on a Sunday that we came up here. Everybody was kind of tired, but we only had a few shots to grab here. And it worked out all right. The lighting was really nice. It was really nice and dramatic. And like I said, there's a freeway like just beyond that ridge is the road, but you couldn't see it. You couldn't see any of the cars that are parked up there. So you got this idea of the wilderness, which really worked out. And then this area, I call this area the temple. In the script, it was originally supposed to be a ruined temple, which was obviously never going to happen on our budget. But we went to the prop house, and I found some columns and pedestals. I found this cool little plush divan couch thing, and this weird astrolabe / sundial type of garden ornament, and a couple of just like Greco-Roman column pieces. And we sort of like found a clearing and set this up in it. Now this clearing was in an area that was part of a real estate development, the kind of thing where they pave in all the roads and put in the utilities and the sewage and whatnot, and then people buy the lots and build the houses on them. And this is evidently they had just done all the infrastructure, but there were no houses built yet. So yep, guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. But we didn't steal this location. Actually, we just sort of borrowed it. I don't know. I contacted there was a sign with the developer's phone number and fax number. I called or faxed the developer, and I think I lied and said we were a student production, which we were basically a student production. I mean, I made this film instead of going to graduate school. And they said, yeah, sure, whatever, because there was nobody up there to disturb. There was there was nothing we could mess up or break or anything like that. So this is just, I mean, we're about 20 feet from a cul-de-sac, road. There's nothing around except more woods. So it was a really perfect location for us to shoot in because there was nobody there to disturb. Nobody was going to bug us. Again, Christina Lee's parents had a cabin that was not too far. It was about a half an hour away from this location. And they graciously let us all go up there and, the whole crew and cast crashing at, the cast, it was just Eric and Felicia were the only two, Eric and Jerica were the only two cast members there. But it was the whole crew, and we all crashed in Christina's parents' cabin for the night on Friday night and or Saturday night. And then let's see, are there any others? Oh yeah. All right. So this is a fun location here. This is the morgue. The morgue. We needed to shoot this scene in a morgue. We obviously couldn't get access to a morgue. So again, this is another free location because this was a building that Mark, Josh's uncle, managed. Mark is the actor in the scene here, acting opposite Eric. He was the manager at this apartment building, and it looks like a hospital, right? But it's all about set dressing. I'm going to tell you something. This area, that you're looking at, this isn't even indoors. This is outside. That door on the right-hand side, that's the door to an apartment. It had a hook on the front, I guess, for hanging wreaths on or something like that, so we hung a clipboard on it. The little wall area to the left there where the fire hose is, I believe that's where the elevators were for this building. And the red line on the wall, that's just gaffer tape. So this was just, like I said, we just put. I think it was Josh who put the gaffer tape up, and that put the gaffer tape along the thing and around the fire hose. Wheeled in this gurney with the corpse that was me on it, and that's a an IV bottle and stand, which I think is probably from the 50s or 60s that I pulled out of the prop warehouse. But it's enough to sell the idea that this is some kind of a medical facility. You put Mark in the scrubs and the coat, and suddenly it's a medical facility. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Josh. That's just 1 inch camera tape, running along the wall. There's a YouTube channel called Simple Tricks and Nonsense, which I think they were active like 10 years ago or something like that, but the stuff is still up. Which talks a lot about this kind of set dressing and how you can take any old plain apartment and just like figure out a way to dress it up to make it look like something completely different. And it's all about, we even added there's like some hospital announcement sound effects that we added underneath the scene in post to sell the idea. But yeah, so it's just again, this is not even inside. This is outside on the sidewalk outside of, or a balcony or something like that outside of an apartment building, or outside of an apartment in this building. And yeah, it all worked out. And that was the final location that we did. And then it was time for editing. And editing in the old days, everybody today has it really easy. You just go into Premiere or whatnot, non-linear editing. We had to edit. When you go in a lab, you get it back, you get film. Landon asked, "Where the heck did you get a gurney?" Oh yeah, no, that came from the prop house. Yeah, the gurney came from the prop house, where I got that's where the IV bottle came from as well. And we didn't have a lot of budget for props, but we were really, really judicious with props and set dressing. It doesn't take a huge amount of money. It just takes sort of like knowing what what are the necessary elements to put in the scene to sort of like sell that slang for this is a Honey West. Yeah, it's just about knowing, if you get the right set dressing in the right place, you can sort of sell the scene. As long as the actors have something to bounce off of and they look like in the right place, then you can do a lot with a little bit. So editing, yeah. So this is what you get back from Photocam. You get back boxes full of rolls of work print film. They basically just take all of the raw footage you shot, and then they develop it and print it, and they give you a box. And how do you edit that in 1993? Well, there's two ways to do it. One, you could, let's see if I've got where are we? Let's see. Oh yeah, and the audio tape too. Yeah. And the audio, of course, is all separate on reel-to-reel audio cassettes, that's what you got from your Nagra. You've got all the paperwork to sort of line up where you are. And how do you edit in 1993? Well, you could use one of these. If you had access to one of these, this is an old flatbed film editor. I'm sure Grant and Josh are geeking out over this right now. Although I don't know if this is a particularly good one. It's just an old picture I found online. I did not have access to one of these. And this is for 35 millimeter anyway, although maybe this can handle a 16 millimeter. Cam, yes, exactly. There you go, Grant. And but I did not have access to one to a flatbed editor. So it was basically I was going to have to edit it on video, and in order to do that, I basically had the lab transfer all of the work print film over to broadcast quality tape, so I could edit on one of these machines. This is a Betacam SP machine. Lanny says the Flintstones want their edit bay back. Yeah, Moviola, exactly. So this is basically a broadcast VTR for for Betacam SP tapes, which is basically what the news used back then. I think I don't know, do people still use these in the news departments? Probably not anymore. I think they did into like the early 2000s, but I'm pretty sure they're all gone now. Yeah, exactly, Josh. Okay, yeah, exactly. Now, so I think when we for Subtle Poisons was actually on 3/4 inch broadcast tape, not Betacam, but this basically the same kind of machine. But here's the issue. I did not have yeah, linear versus nonlinear. I'll get to that. Here's the problem. I did not have access to one of these machines either. So what was I going to do? Well, I talked to a couple of people I knew at Paramount, including one of the guys who worked at Neufeld Ramey. His name was Albert Beveridge. He was a really cool guy. He wasn't much older than I was, or was about the same age that I was, but he had gotten himself into a high up development job there somehow. And but Albert hooked me up with one of the guys who worked at Paramount's department where they, you know how like I don't know if people know today, but like in the old days when they used to show movies on broadcast television, they would have to edit them for content, like to edit out all of the profanity or edit them for time. Or if there was stuff that was too violent, they would cut that out as well to prepare it to go on broadcast television. Well, Paramount had a little editing division that was right behind they where they have the water tank and the big tall sort of like sky backdrop in the middle of the Paramount lot. Right behind that was a building where they had in on the first floor they had like 4 or 5 edit bays back there that were dedicated to like editing movies for television type thing. And they had a bunch of 1/4 inch and beta machines back there. And Albert introduced me, oh, pardon me, to one of the guys who worked in that department or who managed that department. And I don't remember if it was Albert or the guy himself, but from one or the other of them, I got a key to the edit bays, which, I mean, the statute of limitations has run out on that, I'm sure. But basically, I finagled a key to those edit bays, and after hours, I'd go and I'd work my day job at Neufeld Ramey Productions, and after I was done for the day, I would walk over. I would go out to my car. I'd grab all of the tapes that had the work print material on them, and I'd schlep them over to the edit bays. After everybody else had gone home, and I would spend until like 3 or 4 in the morning working all night editing Subtle Poisons. And again, you're talking about linear editing versus non-linear editing. Now, when you edit in Premiere, you can just like if you want to, put 3 scenes in a row, and you're like, all right, I like these 3. And then you have a 4th scene. Oh, I got to put this scene back in between scenes 1 and 2. You can just shuffle things around and drop it in. Yeah, exactly. What post-production services doesn't know doesn't hurt them. I don't know if they were keeping track of the hours on those machines, but I mean, some of those machines must have been showing up with an extra, 100 hours or so on them. But nobody ever caught me. Anyway, yeah, I would go on the weekends too. Yeah, I was doing it at night. I was doing it on the weekends for like 2 or 3 weeks. I was in there putting this together. But linear editing is when you're editing on tape, because if you like put 3 scenes in a row on a piece of tape and you want to put a scene between scene 1 and 2, you have to basically copy over scene 2 and 3 to put your new scene in there. You basically have to reassemble the whole thing. It's called destructive editing versus non-destructive editing, and it's a pain in the ass. That was where I learned to edit. So, like all the editing that I did in my early life was linear destructive editing, because I never had access to nonlinear editing, except I'd be in school where we were actually editing film on one of those flatbeds or on a moviola or something. But because I only could get access to this, we had to settle for linear editing. Everything takes 4 times as long, and it's very, very difficult. But the problems still are not over, because again, the final product is not the tape that you're editing. The final product is a film on celluloid. So how do you translate what you're doing on the tape to the film? Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but on film there are these things called edge numbers. That's basically time code for film. And when they had transferred the work prints that I was using to do the editing on the videotape, all of the scenes had the time code, the edge numbers and the time code on the screen, burned into the screen, so that I could see all the time code. So basically, I completed my entire edit of the film, and then I had to go through and shot by shot clip by clip, for every shot, cut, fade, dissolve, everything. I had to write down all of the in point and out points for all of the edge numbers, for all of the time code, so that I could make a cut list. And this is a video cut list. This isn't even a film cut list. The film cut lists look even more crazy. And give that to a negative cutter. And a negative cutter was somebody who was going to take my list that was basically the list of all of the cuts in the film. And this is like in Premiere I think Premiere can or like any of these nonlinear computer editing packages can probably output a nice cut list, which you can give to a negative cutter. Not that anybody really needs to anymore, but yeah, I had to by hand assemble a cut list for the entire 40-minute film, and it was, I don't remember how many pages it was. I used Excel to put it together, and it was a real, again, just a pain in the ass. And every single cut, every single fade, every single dissolve had to be noted. What's the in point? What's the out point? If it was a dissolve, when does it start? When does it finish? Exactly, Josh. 30 years later, the whole process can be done on your iPhone. Exactly. Yeah, I think it took me like 2 or 3 days just to put together the cut list. And then I gave it to a negative cutter who the negative cutter basically takes your cut list, goes over to PhotoChem. I know, Grant, it is amazing any of this ever got done. The negative cutter goes to the lab and goes into a clean room at the lab, wearing nice gloves, and sits down with your actual negative. This is the actual negative that you shot, the original negative, and cuts the negative according to your cut list. And the weird thing is, this is a weird thing to think about, the negative cutter who edited my film never saw the film. Never projected it, probably never even looked at a single frame of it. They just look at the edge numbers. They just look at the edge numbers so they know where to make the cuts and make the cuts. So the editor, the actual negative cutter, never saw the film. In fact, I never saw the negative cutter either. It was somebody I knew. I was put in touch with them over the phone, and we never met in person. I sent them a check, and then they went in and they did the job. But so then they cut the negative, and then after that, the lab made a print from the cut negative. Josh and I we did a couple of rounds of color timing with them. While this was going on, I had to master the audio. So this was the last hurdle. Again, things are so much easier now, but I have to show you this picture because this was the last thing that we had to take care of, was mastering the audio. Now, I had done basically the mix down for the soundtrack, such as I used various things. I had a DAT digital audio tape recorder that I had some elements on. I used my old cassette tape 4-track recorder to do a couple of things on. Landon says, what happens if you put the wrong time code down? Is there any way to fix that, right? Funny you should ask, Landon. I actually did have, there was a problem in the cut list where I had accidentally used a few frames of the same piece of negative twice, which you can't do because there's only one negative. The negative cutter called me up and said, hey, there's a problem in your cut list. I got to this point now where the negative cutter found that error, and I had to really scramble to dive back into the editing bay with the work tapes to find a workaround for that, and quickly make some adjustments to that and revise the cut list and send it back to the negative cutter. So I would like to tell you that the one and only time I ever did a cut list for a film, it was all perfect 100%, but no, there was, I did a pretty good job. There was only one error on it. And the film happened, and it looked the way it was supposed to at the end, so that's all that matters. Yeah, Grant says, many an Operation Haste album birthed forth from that 4-track. Yes. Oh God. Yeah, that was my old band in high school and college, Operation Haste. But yeah, so I think I did like the monster sound effects on the 4-track. It didn't sound very good, but anyway, but like I had all these elements, and I had more or less quote unquote mastered it on the broadcast tape, along with the rough cut that I did. So I wanted to take that to PhotoChem and say, okay, here's the soundtrack on this broadcast tape, and they said, no, we can't do that. We can't do an optical, because on the actual film you needed to have optical sound, which is where they basically take the waveform from your soundtrack, and they print it optically via a special process on the side of the film, down like one, I think it was the left or the right hand side of the film, and then there's a special optical reader that translates that back into sound on the projector. And they said, no, we can't make an optical print off of a broadcast tape. No, you have to bring us an audio master. I was like, what does the audio master need to be on? I'll show you what the audio master needs to be on. It needs to be on this. I still have this. I'm never going to get rid of this. This is the most expensive piece of media I have ever bought in my life. It's a 2-inch audio mastering tape. This is what, I mean, I don't know that anybody uses these still anymore. I'm sure, I imagine some of people still use them, but like Sting and Bon Jovi and Van Halen, they use this tape. This is what, this is the 2-inch, this belongs to like a 24-track recording machine. This is a 2-inch. I have no idea how long this tape is. I know it must weigh at least 8 pounds. It's in this beautifully machined reel. I mean, as an artifact, it's actually kind of a beautiful thing as an artifact. But I was just like flabbergasted that I needed to deliver my chintzy, cheesy soundtrack for this film on this amazing piece of, at the time, technology, an expensive piece of technology. I had to go to a mastering house. I paid for the tape separately because I was able to get a deal on it through the supplier that I was using for the film, and I went to this mastering house. I knew how much an hour's studio time cost. It was a 40-minute film, and I knew that there wasn't a lot that we needed to do to it in the mastering process. And pardon me. And so we sat down. We wound up going overtime, though. We wound up going overtime by about 20 or 30 minutes. I think it was about 20 minutes that we went overtime in the mastering process. We got it done, but then when I went to pay for it, I had let's see, I had cash. No, I didn't have cash. I had a checkbook. I had my checkbook with me to pay for it. But they would not take a personal check. And I couldn't write that personal check anyway because we had gone over time. I had exceeded the budget for this was like at the very end of the process, so I didn't have any money left to pay for the overages. And so I said, well, can I use a credit card? And they said, no, we won't take a credit card. They wouldn't take a credit card. They wouldn't take a personal check. They would only take a cashier's check because who was I? I was a nobody, and I was at this big fancy audio post house. So they said, well, just, you can have the tape when you bring us the money, when you bring us the check. So I had to spend a week scrambling because I had already set up a time to take it to the lab to get the work done so that I could get a video transfer of the whole thing at the end. It's a complicated process. But yeah, I had to go scrounge for a week to get the money and to get a cashier's check to pay the audio mastering house so that I could get my tape out of it again and take this huge hunk of tape to the lab. Really ridiculous that my little 60 millimeter film that the soundtrack is on this massive high fidelity piece of audio medium. But that was the post-production process. And that sort of like brings us to the end, more or less, of the story of how the film was made. It was a trip. It was a journey. Like I said before, I basically did this film instead of going to graduate school, and I think it was worth it. I financed most of it on credit cards. I never really made that money back. It did win an award at World Fest Houston. There was a very small festival down in Texas, and a couple of my friends had submitted films there and had done well there. So I submitted Subtle Poisons down there, and it won the Gold Award for Best Short Subject in Film and Video in the Fantasy Horror genre for 1995. So I can accurately say that I'm an award-winning director, although, it was a long time ago now. But had a lot of fun with the film, and now I've got the film on tap here. So everybody, the talk has gone on a lot longer than I thought it was going to go on. Sort of like going back and reminiscing about all this stuff. If there's anybody who has any questions, now probably would be a good time to put it into the stream. And if there's anything anybody wants to know about it. I was planning on, I'm still planning on just running the film now. The film's about 40 minutes long. And if for if you guys want to hang out and watch the film with me, that'd be great. I'm gonna do a little bit of Mystery Science Theater 3000 over it. Nick says the popcorn's ready. That's awesome. So you're gonna get some commentary as we go through the film. Again, I'm not hugely proud of the writing on this. The writing, I'm credited on this as writing, producing, directing, editing, and I did the music for it as well, which was just. I'm really proud. I'm actually proud of more proud of the music that I did for this than I am of the writing of the film. But it was all done. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Nick's gonna watch. Rick's gonna watch. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna roll on the film. And here we go, folks. This is gonna be. Hang on. Let me get it prepped up here. And let's see. Let's get ready here. There's Subtle Poisons audio. Okay. And I'm gonna keep my mic open. And like I said, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna comment a little as we go on with this. But welcome to Subtle Poisons. Now this is a transfer. So the quality of this is going to be a little bit rough. You haven't seen this in 25 years, Grant. Yeah, I know, me either. Yeah. So the quality is a little bit rough. What you're watching here is the film has only ever been projected, I think, twice. And once for a screening at Paramount Studios, and once for when it was put in a telecine machine to make a videotape master that was on broadcast tape. And then that broadcast tape was used to make several copies on VHS. And what you're watching right now is a digital transfer through a very, very primitive device from a VHS tape. So this is like 4 generations removed. So the quality is not great. These titles, right? Today you just put your digital titles in Premiere, and back then, like, I had no idea how to do titles, so I did a little bit of research and I got the idea of basically these titles were printed in negative on pieces of acetate, and then I shot that myself basically in a dark room with a light behind the acetate using an old Bolex wind-up 60mm camera, which is why the text is shaking all over the screen there. And so this was sort of like this moody shot. No, that's all. That's all stuff we shot, Anne. It's our man Eric. Tarantino pays a lot of money for that look, yeah.
Jesus.
Eric broke the window while he was trying to get it open because it was stuck. The sound here is kind of bad. This was all Foley. There's none of this is original sound in this one right
now. Danny, what is it?
You've been in here all morning staring at your desk. Something bugging you these days, Steve?
Oh, yeah, it's the heat, goddamn traffic and smog, pollution. The heat just makes it worse.
Maybe you just need to get out of the city for a few days.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Oh,
There's a pretty gross picture here.
Only
It's like way overdone on the
figure it
gore
out.
on that picture.
Guy was a doctor, Herman Lindholm. Worked at a hospital here in L.A.
Where were these photos taken?
Crack factory in Compton.
Yeah,
That's where
I definitely didn't know anything about
cocaine,
police or
which he
drugs when I
sold to
wrote
his
this.
friends in Beverly Hills.
It looks like the place blew up.
It looks like it, but forensics says no. Besides, it's not what the witnesses say.
There were witnesses to this?
Most of them were flying pretty high on crack fumes. They were A bit
This
too
is probably the most
catatonic to talk.
probably the most
What did he
cringeworthy
say?
dialogue in the whole thing.
Well, the only thing that they can agree upon is that Dr. Lindholm was ripped limb from limb. When we got there, all that was left was a pile in the middle of the floor, little pieces laying all around the place.
That shot is my
Have you,
homage to Steven
Have you
Spielberg
spoken to
there.
the cops over in Beverly Hills recently?
Why?
Well, a friend of mine works that beat, and he told me that last night they found a girl, something very similar to this. I thought he was exaggerating, but
Yes, Danny, you call your friend in Beverly Hills. I want to know who's working on that case. Call Joe Sumner. You tell her to meet me at the crime scene. And close the door on your way out.
Landon, we've got a few things coming up. You know what? You're on the email list. I'm going to be talking about that in. I'm going to be sending out some more emails soon about what's come up and how we're going to make it happen. But a lot of that's going to depend on what happens in the next few days, the next few weeks, really. This scene here is kind of interesting. Eric came up with this backstory thing about for his character about how he had accidentally shot a little girl. So we printed up this. Actually, I think Eric had this printed up, this newspaper article. Unfortunately, it didn't really read well in the shot. Nick, to answer your question, yes, we used boom mics. So, no lavaliers at this time. Again, Rob doesn't know anything about cocaine, obviously, because that's not how you do it. Apparently.
Goddamn air.
This scene was shot out in front of my apartment building. In fact, this whole scene is shot around my apartment building.
Partner, I see you finally remembered how to pick up a phone.
Yeah, well, I know how busy you are on your new beat. Say, it's a good thing your secretary had the car phone number. Jesus, Joe, do you mind?
Sorry, Steve. I forgot.
I want to know why I didn't hear about this sooner. You know damn well I already put out the word on my homicide case.
Well, you know how it is, Steve. We don't want to panic the locals.
And this scene shows that I don't know anything about cops.
What the hell do you mean, not a homicide case?
Why don't you come inside and take a look?
The part that Kelly is playing there was originally written with a man in mind, but
Manager said she didn't live here.
you know, she just
I was sitting for a friend.
you know, it just seemed like perfect for her too, just with her attitude and the way that she could, the way that she
I
acted.
think she was looking for trouble.
How do you mean?
Well, there was a lot of cocaine in that room. She's probably dealing.
Rob doesn't know anything about drugs.
You're gonna keep this quiet, right?
Well, I don't know, Sumner. You're the paragon of discretion. You got a name for this chick?
Yeah. Felicia Thompson. You knew her?
I'm kind of proud that we managed to pull off a walk and talk in this space, given how
See the file.
wildly the lighting changes from outside to inside. Josh did a great job with
Police said the
that.
neighbors reported screaming at about 11. Lots of
This is
violent
Josh is
noises
hand holding
and
the
then
camera,
sudden
the camera right
silence.
here.
What the hell is that?
What does it look like to you?
I just want to emphasize that my apartment looked like this for a whole month after we shot this. I don't know, I think Steve went a little overboard with the blood.
Forget get it, Joe. She was not ripped apart by some goddamn mountain lion.
Oh, yeah? Then what?
So, fun fact: this scene was shot at night, actually, and we had to try and match the lighting with the daytime outside. So, cameras open wide up, and we had a ton of light pouring out. The neighbors complained about the light, so we blacked out their windows from the outside for them.
Probably some guy with a big knife.
Forensics said that knife would have to have 4 blades evenly spaced. And as for the corpse, well, Steve. Steve! Steve!
Landon, I still have the script for this, but honestly, I think the script is the weakest part of this film. I thought about doing a new transfer from the original work print, the original print, and doing like a nice digital clean transfer, maybe redoing the audio, but it's a lot of work and probably cost a couple of grand.
Shut up.
And now we go into a flashback. Jerica does know how to use cocaine. We won't say why.
Stupid kid. You keep that up and you're gonna get caught.
Now, how could I when I've got my guardian angel watching over me?
Yeah, there's nothing I can do for you if they take you downtown.
Oh, babe. Too much smoking. Son, I figure you out.
Hey. Come on, don't be playing me like one of your addict friends.
You're not gonna let them take me.
If you look in the background, you saw a glimpse of Rob with hair. Again, no background extras.
What the hell is the matter with you? Are you still having those attacks?
I'm okay.
You never used to be this fucked up.
Maybe it's a city, Joe. Maybe I just can't hack it anymore.
Maybe you should see a doctor.
Yeah. Maybe I just need a vacation.
It's my 2-second anti-smoking PSA. And there's Rob going by in the background again. Oh my god, I think that is Josh standing next to Andy in the background. Josh, you are in the movie.
What'd you do that for?
I need to ask you a few questions. Come here.
You're Felicia's friend. She's not here.
Yeah, I know she's not here. She's dead.
What do you want with me? I don't know anything.
Yeah? Well, I think you do. Has Felicia been stepping on anyone's toes recently? Maybe someone she was doing business with?
I told you, I don't know anything.
Look at kid. Somebody killed Felicia. Only it was worse than that. Somebody messed her up bad. And I'm trying to find out why. Have you ever seen this guy before? He's a doctor. His name is Herman Lindholm. Look, the sooner you tell me what I want to know, the sooner I'm out of your life.
That's a good question, Josh. I don't know who's operating
Yeah,
the
I
camera.
saw them together sometimes. They went to school together, I think.
Where? What school?
Felicia was at Berkeley. Can I go now?
Wait a minute. Now, how often did they see each other? What did they talk about?
Old times and stuff. Last week they were hanging out with some new guy that Herman brought around. I think Felicia knew him.
What's his name?
Something French, that's all I know. Are we done?
Wait a minute. Now, what does he look like? How can I find him?
He's tall, thin,
I actually kind of
blonde.
like the look of this
The only
scene, and
time
I
ever
want
saw him was
to
at
I want to
the
say
Eureka
thanks,
Coffee
Josh,
House.
for making this scene look as good as it does. There's some time-lapse footage we shot. This shot, I hate this shot. We had one huge light that we poured into the street, and it was not enough to get the especially in this. I think on the original film you can sort of see what's going on, but after going through 2 video transfers, you can sort of like barely see Moon get out of his car and walk across in front of the car and then into the coffee shop. And then again, that there's a sound effect missing there. You can barely hear it. Oh, and now we get to see Gary.
Now, if I didn't know any better, I would say you look like a policeman.
And do I also look like I want that cup of coffee?
I never knew a cop who wasn't addicted.
Listen, I'm looking for somebody. You
Finger
ever
the
seen this guy
nose.
before?
What? That guy? He's been dead for a bloody week now. You're not looking for him, that's for sure.
No, I'm looking for a guy you might have come in here with. Tall guy, blonde hair, French name?
No, I don't know.
Gary was he was always cracking up on set. He had everybody in stitches.
Now, ain't it funny how the memory kicks in? Yeah. I know the guy you're on about. French name. His name's Navarre. But I don't think he's going to give you what you want, mate. No way. Knowing too much about this guy can seriously put a cramp in your lifestyle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, that's not much.
It's bloody enough for me, that's for sure.
You can hear in the background this
give up, do you?
a radio playing, and that was added in post because I was trying to make this place seem exotic, so I
I see your
recorded a
mind's
bunch of
really made
news
up on finding
reports
stuff.
in French
And is that
and put that in the
isn't it?
background.
In fact, he sat over there in the corner. He's the one with the back facing us. Now look, if you've got a bit of savvy, you ought to pick his cup up, drink the coffee, and then bleed him bugger off.
Nick, that absolutely VO dubbing was a
Excellent.
big deal back then, and we did some of it for here, but actually we got relatively good audio for most of the film, so I was pretty happy with the audio that we had, and we were able to work with it.
Stephen Moon. I'd like to ask you some questions.
This is Howard as Navarre here.
So, you're Navarre. What's your first name?
Navarre is my only name. Have you come because of Felicia?
Look, I don't know who the hell you think you are, but I'm getting kind of tired of this ambiguous crap. See, I want to know.
We probably should
how you know
have dubbed this
Felicia
scene given all the traffic noises
and where
coming
you
from
were
outside.
last night.
I was here all last night. It can be easily proved. As for my relationship with Felicia, we were old acquaintances.
What do you mean by that?
We knew each other in college. It is the same with Dr. Lindholm. I was here on the night of his death as well.
Well, it must have come as quite a shock to you to have both of them die so suddenly. What with you just coming back into their lives.
Most disturbing.
This scene, we were doing something weird with the camera here. We were going for some kind of floaty thing
I
to keep
understand you
like it
wanted
was
to do
all off
business with
balance.
Felicia.
I'm not sure it really
Just sell
worked.
her some coffee.
What kind of coffee would that be?
Why, nothing contraband, I assure you.
Well, we talking about some kind of designer drug here?
Oh, please, please. It's only coffee.
Oh, and where did that second cup come from? No, it's not a continuity error. Yeah, Nick, we did have a dolly track for this, so we used it a lot.
Good.
It's the very best. It grows only in the deepest jungles of South America.
I don't drink coffee.
I don't know. I think I was trying to be real. I was
Felicia
trying real
mentioned
hard to
you
be
to
Angel
me.
Heart in this
Julia
in this scene. I don't know that. I don't think we really pulled
This
it off.
brew contains certain medicinal properties which you may find a little more satisfactory than her solution.
The
Why
dialogue
do you
is certainly
sell
pretentious
Felicia
enough.
Coffee, that doesn't sound like her style.
But do you really want to know is why Felicia was killed?
Well, maybe you'll just do me a favor and answer me that question.
She led a dangerous life, Mr. Moon. She was a dealer in drugs. She was poisoning her friends. And she herself became poisoned. Dr. Lindholm died for the same reasons.
Felicia was hardly poisoned, Bar. She was ripped limb from limb.
Yes. Drugs are subtle poisons, yes. They can kill in any number of ways. Some less obvious than others. I maintain that Felicia destroyed herself as much as anything else.
Well, you seem very apathetic for someone who supposedly just lost two close friends. What's your part in all this?
I deal in coffee, Mr. Moon. That was my sole interest in her.
Nick, to answer your question, yes, this is all original
Perhaps if you
music.
try some, you'll understand that I'm being serious.
That could be poison.
Only if you poisoned it yourself.
Yeah, I did all of the music for this. We had a composer who I started working with on the project, but I don't think he had done any film work before. He was a musician that somebody knew, and he produced some original tracks. But when we listened to the music back with the tracks, it just didn't fit. So I wound up doing it myself with my with a keyboard and my 4-track and a sequencer. And now we have the sort of like the mystical hallucination freak-out thing. We paid the coffee house enough money that they let us take their furniture up to the mountains. I'm pretty proud of this sequence. The music's a little on the nose, but just the overall pacing of it and the way it's put together, I think it turned out good. Really like that match cut. Really opens up the whole scene. I can't tell you how many times we had to do that take to get that shot. This section is a little bit too dragged out, I think. I mean, it's supposed to be very sort of like dreamlike and floaty. That was not the original costume for Jerica for this scene. Originally, I had some like this Greco-Roman thing that I got from a costume rental house. When we put it on her, it looked hideous. So, note, always have a blank check with you when you're on a set, in case you need to send somebody out to get something. But I think Ian ran out and found this slip at a store someplace. That, thank God for that. Josh, most of the music for this I did with my Roland U20 and I think a Boss Doctor synth. It's the terrible audio compression that's making it sound halfway decent. Like that transition. I think that transition worked.
Steve, when'd you come in? Everyone's been looking for you since you blew off Sumner yesterday.
Did you see me come in?
No, you look like shit. Jesus, maybe you should go home.
Fuck that. Danny, you place a call up to UC Berkeley. You find out anything you can about a girl named Felicia Thompson and what she may have been doing with our friend Herman Lindholm. See if you can find out any reference.
I asked.
A guy named.
This was at the end of a long day, and we were all kind of like really wigged out. The camera is in the far corner of the room. There's no place for anybody else to stand, so I'm directing this from inside the closet.
Starting to worry.
Now we got a montage scene now where Moon is walking around, going various places, trying to get the information, but he's getting the runaround. This place is a coffee shop just around the corner from where I lived, and they were really nice, letting us sort of just like come in, shoot this one shot, and get out in the middle of the day, like in the middle of a business day. They let us come do that. That's around the corner from my apartment. This is behind my apartment. It's my brother. That's where the reel changed over there, where you heard the jump in the music, because this thing went just a little bit too long to be one reel. This is also behind my apartment. And again, yeah, I'm not really happy with this shot either, but again, this is... And that's the old Texaco building that was right up the street from where I lived, at Universal City. The lighting in this shot works, I think. I don't remember if this was night or day for night, but the lighting worked. Another really good match cut there. That really worked. That's a nice shot. Very 80s music video. Is another shot with really bad Foley work by me, very primitive Foley work.
Yeah. Sarge sent me in to wake you up. He's wondering if I plan on taking up residence. Steve, do you think maybe you're going at this a little too hard?
Did you turn up anything at Berkeley?
I think I found what you need. Seems that Felicia and Lindholm were involved in a little scandal sometime back.
Let me guess. Drugs?
Yeah. The two were trying to synthesize LSD in one of the school labs.
It's more
They were going to
of
sell the
Rob
stuff,
not
but they
knowing
got
anything
caught
about drugs.
before they could complete their product.
I'm pretty sure that this is
No.
that shot of
They really
David
didn't
there.
know
I'm
what
pretty
they
sure
were
that's a
doing.
night for day.
So to see if they got it right,
shot. I think we
Felicia
had a light
recruited a few
hung out the
guinea
window
pigs.
outside the building.
Holy shit.
Yeah. They all had a massively bad trip. And they died. All except one.
Navarre.
He was an exchange student, the son of an Argentine businessman. He lived, but he went insane. They sent him back to South America, where he was institutionalized. And by all reports, never heard from again.
Felicia and Lindholm?
They had to leave Berkeley, but they never did any time. You think this Navarre is behind the killings?
I think so. Oh, fuck, I don't know. I'm still working on it.
Well, I got another piece for your puzzle.
Another death?
Another drug dealer.
Yeah, Josh, I think this was
This guy was
supposed to be
Colombian.
day. I don't know if it sells as
He was
day.
under investigation by the feds until they found him murdered in his hotel room last night.
Oh, believe me, Danny, the feds do not even want to touch this
Too late.
one.
They're sending a guy over later today.
Danny, who did the autopsy on Lindholm?
Arnie, why?
You see if he's working today. I want to pay him a little visit.
More weird Foley work from Rob. Again, this was shot with no sound. Eric really put his all into this. He did a really great job. I'm very impressed with Eric's work in this, what he had to work with.
Arnie, hey, I need to talk to you.
Careful, this is very delicate.
What is it?
Well, it's poison, actually. I made a hobby out of recognizing the different types by taste.
Yeah, well, poison is kind of what I need to talk to you about. You did the autopsy on Herman Lindholm.
Well, yeah, cause of death was hardly a puzzle, Stephen. Having one's organs thrown about the room tends to kill a person, you know?
I know, but is there something you could have possibly overlooked? Maybe something that was in his system beforehand.
Are you saying that he was poisoned and then dissected?
No. What do you know about hallucinogens?
Well, that's what they pay me for. Why don't you ask your question?
Okay. You know how people say that if you die in a dream, you die in real life? Well, suppose someone gave you a drug to make you think you were dying.
A hallucination is a murder weapon? Quite original.
But would it work?
I'm not sure that you can control a hallucination. Might be able to awaken something primal like pain or fear, but the images would have to come from the victim's own psyche.
Mark's delivery as the morgue guy is just perfect here.
So if there was something inside you, your own personal demons or something.
Well, then they could come to life and destroy you. That's quite fanciful, don't you think?
Did you look at his fingernails?
Of course I looked at his fingernails.
Was there any tissue?
I don't see what that's got to do with it.
Was there any of Lindholm's tissue under his fingernails?
Now, look here, Stephen. Even if the man was in the throes of some kind of psychotic trauma, he couldn't have ripped himself to shreds. It isn't possible to blur the line between reality and fantasy like that.
Yeah? Well, maybe Lindholm was too scared to remember that.
Hey, Steve.
Detective Moon, Special Agent Gray, FBI.
Sit down.
I understand you've been working on a drug-related case that may tie into the murder of Mr. Escobar.
Well, that depends. How'd he die?
Well, we've been following Mr. Escobar for
I
the
told
past
Scott to deliver a
several
weird
weeks.
performance, and his performance really is
Late yesterday evening,
deeply weird.
he checked into his hotel room in an agitated state, drew all the blinds, then locked the door. He had bodyguards with him, but he wouldn't allow them in the room.
What happened after that?
We had several listening devices planted in the room. He was alone. He cried for some time, and then he prayed.
Let's hear it.
And hey, that's the Nagra that we recorded all the sound on.
No quiero morir, no quiero morir. Padre nuestro que estás en los cielos, santificado sea tu reino. Diosito Santo.
It's all in Spanish.
I believe the overall meaning is clear. Early in the week, we took these pictures. We're still trying to identify the blonde man.
Ayúdame, por favor. Diosito Santo que estás en los cielos, santificado sea tu nombre. Ayúdame, por favor. No, me arrepiento de todo el mal que he hecho, por favor, ayúdame. No.
We lost track of him after that. Escobar turned up yesterday. Intriguing, isn't it? That sound is almost inhuman.
policies, eh, Mr. Wu?
Let's see, how many dramatic stings can I put in here at the end? I'm not entirely sure what I was going for with that ending, but I don't really think I stuck the landing on it. But there we go, that's Subtle Poisons. And, yeah, these credits, these are really, really, really rough. But again, this was, the printing that I had done on it was just, it was very, very difficult to manage. Anyway. So, thanks everybody for coming out and for watching the film and for listening to me talk about it. So this ran a lot longer than I thought it was going to run, but I had fun talking about it with everybody. Thanks, Nick. Josh, Grant, it was great. You guys hanging out in the stream. I haven't talked to you guys in a long time. Josh, especially. We really need to hang out online or something sometime soon. Thank you, Josh. So yeah, again, we'll do this again. We'll do this again with a shorter film, maybe. Maybe we'll do this with Subtle Poisons. I ran out of music for the end of the credits. So yeah, thanks, Rick. Thank you, appreciate it. All right. So anyway, so thanks everybody for coming. This was a walk down memory lane for me and kind of a blast. Yeah, Josh, definitely. We'll talk again soon. And this is going to be archived on the channel. So the whole stream we'll put it up on the Nova Motion Pictures site. Thanks, Landon. Yeah, definitely. Landon's a new member for the co-op, and we want to get him in on some of the films that we're going to be doing over the next year. And I'll be talking more about that in the upcoming emails. And since this has probably gone long enough, I should probably just go ahead and shut this down. And I'm going to go ahead. I need to, again, because of the 20-second delay, I'll go ahead and I'll just put up the logo. But thanks so much, guys, for hanging out. Really a lot of fun. And we'll do it again. We'll do it again soon. I mean, obviously, as long as we're like this, I think even actually when we start getting together in person again, maybe we'll find some way to keep doing the streaming. I don't know. Maybe. So something to think about. Anyway, Nick, maybe you and I can talk about that. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night. Really appreciate you guys hanging out. And, stay safe. Stay healthy. And if anybody's got any questions about anything that's going on with the co-op or whatnot, you can just give me a buzz. You can hit me up on Facebook, or you can write to info@novamotionpictures.com to find out more about the co-op. Thanks so much, guys.